Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is a show where we sit here and I regale you with all the remember the times when you were playing D&D, Pathfinder, Harp, any kind of tabletop game, and something cool happened. So, we return once more to the campaign of Shadow of the Northern Plains, where we have downed 3 dragons and we are going after the 4th and final. So, I know I've been making this campaign sound, funny and interesting and stuff, but really I've been cutting out hours and hours and hours of travel time, because going from one place to the other, we're always making those fate checks on a D100, and we're always fighting freaking bandits or local animals that want to attack us on the road for some reason, or we're running into more and more and more Yuan-Ti, and we're starting to get sick of it. Like, it's come to the point where, we don't want to walk through the wild grass and run into the 59th bell sprout, or we don't want to walk through the cave and murder 67 Zubats on the way to Cerulean City. Like, we're getting sick of it. Our DM is not listening to us in terms of, okay, we're done with big battles. We're done. Like, the next couple of fights, you really, we know you're a new DM. You've got to cut some of the crap out, some of the fat, so that the next few fights are, like, meaningful. We're done. We really are, man. We're done fighting bandits. We're sick of Yuan-Ti. Unless it's story-related, trim it out. Because this campaign is lasting way longer. Like, we're at the end of our patience at this point. We're not getting any particularly interesting loot. It takes us forever to get from A to B, and we're like, okay, we're done. You've got to change some of this if you want us to actually finish this campaign, because we're getting really bored fighting the same guys over and over and over and over and over again. And he goes, okay, well, you've got one more dragon, and then the Shadow of the Northern Plains, and then you can return to the king, and that'll be the end. So we've got, like, 3 or 4 things to do, and then the campaign will be at its end. So, being that we fought fire, earth, and water, or rather, fought fire and diplomacied earth and received a gift from water, we're on to go have a look at the 4th dragon, a dragon of the winds. Because this is a really cookie-cutter story, but it's not the destination, it's the journey. We keep telling ourselves. Go fetch the 4 magic crystals is not the most original thing, but we're having some fun as we go, just with all the ridiculousness that goes on. So over time, it just kind of became a comedy campaign, because we were poking fun at all the cookie-cutter garbage and 3 steps ahead of the story, etc., etc. But we have one more dragon to go after. We're like, okay, he's had, our DM has had, 3 dragons to think about. One, the fire, he learned how strong we were. The earth, he learned how high skill checks can go. Or the second, he learned how high skill checks can go. And the third, I guess, was planned as part of the story, because he just handed over his crystal. And we got the dragon summoning idol. So, the 4th, surely we will be fighting, and he will have understood how powerful we are and how powerful we have become. With all our new magic items and stuff. So we're pretty sure a fight is coming for this 4th dragon. So we get word that the wind dragon resides in a canyon to the far east. And that he doesn't really have a lair. He has more of like a platform. It's like 100 feet across. It's solid stone with rune carvings and stuff all over it. And we are warned by local magic users, like a local wizard, tells us that the wind dragon is very powerful because the platform he stands on is a giant power sigil. So as long as he's on it, and that's where he hangs out, he doesn't leave very often. As long as he's on it, all of his magic is more powerful. He can run around quicker, he can fly faster, he can bite harder. he spent years and years and years making this giant stone platform that is attuned to his magic alone, and in any whomso challenge him are in for a swift death, because he lives on a power amplifier, basically. So if you've ever seen the Sword of Truth series, you know exactly where this is coming from. Lord Rawl's castle was built weird because all the rooms in it formed a giant power sigil, so he couldn't be beaten while he was at home. The dragon was much the same, except instead of a castle, it's just a giant circular platform. So think like the Cell games, but every tile of stone has like sigils and magic runes on it. So we're like, okay, we're pretty dang strong. We've got all the magic items. You know, we're pretty sure we can take them. Like, we're pushing level 13, level 14 by now. We're getting up there. We've got our +3 swords and our extra fireball spells and our wands of magic missile and, you know, serrated crossbow bolts and things like that. We're pretty decked out from all the bandits that we've just wrecked and taken their stuff and sold it for money and then spent the money on better stuff. So it's kind of like we chained too far into how much money the DM was giving us because we stopped to fight everything while our patience was still there. So we're pretty decked out at this point. And we're like, okay, you know, we're probably not going to be able to get him to leave his little platform, but I think we can take him. I mean, unless it's like a seriously ancient dragon or like a demigod kind of dragon, and none of the others were like that, so we don't think he's going to be. I think we can take him, 6-on-1. So we get ready to travel all the way from the southwestern shore to the northeastern border of the kingdom, where it's either mountains or forest. We're kind of like boxed in to this kingdom. That's why we need to take the Shadow of the Northern Plains down to double the size of the kingdom, because it's cut off. But we've got to travel all the way to the other side of the canyon, or the other side of the kingdom, and we're like, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're sick of bandits. We're sick of Yuan-Ti. And Parlesia's like, I gather everybody up into like join hands in a circle so we can do mass teleport. And by then, like I said, we're level 13, level 14. We can go like 700 miles with mass teleport. And we can land in a precise location if I've been there before, but we haven't been there before, so I can only like generalize it with like a magic mirror and diamond dust and magic arcane powder and break an hourglass over it, pour holy water, do sigils on everybody's foreheads and join hands and sing Kumbaya. And it takes a while to actually cast that spell. It's not a 10-second spell where you can just instantly, instant transmission somewhere. It takes time to set up, especially over such a great distance. And I go, okay, we're ready. And we count the squares, because I think all the squares on the map were like 30, 32 miles. And we can more than make it across the kingdom. And I think it was like roughly 300 miles to land at the nearest town to our destination. And we land there. We teleport all the way across the kingdom, much to the DM's disappointment. That, oh no, we don't want to walk along the road and get freaking jumped by bandits every goddamn day. We were done with that portion of the campaign. No more bandits. We're just gonna start teleporting places. The Parlesia is powerful enough, and the kingdom is small enough. We're not gonna be running the road to do the random battles anymore. That part is over with. So we teleport to the nearest town, to the canyon, and we eat, we stay the night, we recover our spells and abilities, and we're like, okay, we're not going to talk to anybody, we're not going to tell anybody what we're doing, we're just going to go. And we set out to the Eastern Canyon. And the Eastern Canyon, it's little more than just like a great scar on the ground. Like there was an earthquake at some point, and the world just split the hell open. Like some giant was using his massive fingers to just pry the earth open. It's different layers of clay, like the Grand Canyon. It's got a gravel bottom. It's got stalagmites sticking up. It's got rocks balancing precariously on little columns of stone. It's got mountain goats like standing at impossible angles through it. And while we're going through the campaign, or through the canyon, we run into more Yuan-Ti. And we start going, more Yuan-Ti near the dragons. And we look at each other and we go, didn't Yuan-Ti attack the fort right by the dragon of fire? And we go, yeah. It's like, didn't the gypsy caravan of disguised Yuan-Ti, weren't they heading for the lighthouse? And didn't we run into Yuan-Ti right in the swamp, right next to the swamp dragon? And we're like, yeah. We go, the Yuan-Ti are trying to get these elemental crystals as well. It's like they know about them. They want to grab all the elemental crystals so we can't stop them, or to take down the Shadow of the Northern Plains themselves. So they either know what we're doing, or they have also been told by the king, no doubt, that these 4 dragons hold these 4 crystals. So there are multiple factions running around for these same crystals. And the fight with these Yuan-Ti goes about as you might expect. We basically grab a boulder and like push it off into the canyon on top of them, and the 1 or 2 that survive that get peppered with crossbow bolts and magic missiles. So we don't go down there and fight them, we just squish them. And we don't have to actually sit for 3 hours and fight all of them, so that made us happy. And we go down into the campaign to like make sure everybody's dead and to loot them of whatever items we can keep, the small bag of coins. We did find an intact Mask of Flawless Disguise, which I don't think that's actually documented anywhere. I think we made it up. But a Mask of Flawless Disguise you can put on your face, and you can make yourself look like any sort of humanoid of the same shape, or of the same size, like medium creatures. Or if you're small, you can be any small creature. And you can look like whomever you want. So we could put it on and look like a Yuan-Ti, or we could put it on and look like another person or anything like that. And they are masks of flawless disguise. So it's like a plus 20 to your disguise check just automatically. You don't have to roll the dice. But the only thing is they only work once. So we stow that away, and we're very surprised because masks of flawless disguise are very rare among our group. I think we made up that magic item, come to think of it. But amongst like the 8 or 10 of us that are in this regular group of D&D players, masks of flawless disguise would pop up like once a year. So this was this DM's time to drop one of those. So I guess if we wanted to sneak in amongst the Yuan-Ti, we could send in, a double agent or whatever, if you like, to see what they were up to. But we already squished them, so we took their Mask of Flawless Disguise for our own purposes, and we're like, okay, so the Dragon of the Wind lives somewhere in this campaign, in this canyon, and all we have to do is find his platform, right? And we go, Wizard, can you detect magic in any specific direction? And he's like, detect magic, and basically becomes like our compass for a while. And our lore master's like, do we do clairvoyance? And I was like, well, I don't know. It might be hard to actually find it because we don't know what it looks like. I mean, but we looked for the black dragon, and we kind of had an idea what he might look like. But if it's like white stone sitting on brown stone, yeah, that'd be fine. Why don't we save our spell components for now? And it's a canyon. There's only one way to go, it looks like. So we'll hold off on clairvoyance unless we actually need it. And she's like, okay. So with our wizard leading the way, we go down into the depths of this canyon. We're keeping an eye on the upper ledges in case somebody rolls a boulder onto us. Our fighter is super nervous because he doesn't like enclosed spaces as far as battles go. Like, if he doesn't have an escape route, then he's not happy. So fighting out on the road, not much of a problem. Fighting in the cathedral, not much of a problem. Now he's in a narrow space, so he doesn't like it. And he's bright red. He's wearing red dragon armor, so he's gonna be the first target they aim for. And finally we turn a corner and we find it. And we find the wind dragon as well. And he's he's long. He's an Eastern style dragon. And he's like coiled up like a snake, but he's very bird-like. He's got like the long curved beak and lots of feathers and a crown of feathers sticking in all directions, almost like a peacock on the back of his head. And it's all silvery and powder blue, and it's very beautiful. Feathered dragons are not only a rarity among the dragon breeds, but they are very different, very powerful. They can be pompous and greedy, and they have like different shades of personalities compared to other dragons, but they're very much into looking majestic and being like an overpowering presence. And this long Eastern, like I said, long Eastern style dragon, feathers from head to toe, and his wings were like giant, like white angel wings with huge pinions, like pinions as big as we were, that spanned the entire length of this 100-foot platform. And like, okay, yeah, he's actually a big dragon. He's probably like, a mature adult, ancient, something like that. He was by far the oldest and more powerful of the four. So our DM has caught on to how powerful we are compared to these dragons. So we approach, and of course he sits up on his coils of himself to see what's coming, and the runes on the platform glow bright and like imbue him with like a Super Saiyan golden aura, and his feathers all lay down and turn shiny like scales. Like, he's casting buffs on himself even as we round the corner, because 6 dudes coming in armed to the teeth, wearing dragon scale armor as it is. He knows stuff's about to go down. And we stand on the edge of the platform. It comes up to our waists, and sure enough, it's white stone, covered with all kinds of runes. Our wizard can't even read it. It's such advanced magic. And our fighter steps forward like, Dragon of the winds of the canyon, hand over the crystal of air so that we might take down the shadow of the northern plains. And of course, he coils himself up really tall and bears down at us, and he screeches at us like an eagle. Like, this one doesn't even talk to us. It's different from all the others. Like, maybe he doesn't want to like lower himself to speaking common. And it's like, we'll give you one more chance, and then your feathers will be plucked. Hand it over. And the crystal is nowhere to be found that we can see. So we start like clambering up onto this platform, and he lets us, because this is his house, this is his ring. And, all he's got to do is kick our asses while we're all standing on it. And so, we arrange ourselves in the V formation. Power Rangers pose. Yeah! And the lore master, breaks out a little guitar and starts strumming, a couple of buff spells, because she has levels in Bard. And Parlesia passes a couple of buff spells out. It's like we start like hissing and spitting at each other, but this dragon's patient. He's waiting for us to cross his aggro line, I guess. And it's like, okay, roll initiative. So we roll initiative. Dragon wins out by far, which, hey, something that flies, something that's old and big, I can kind of understand that. And he opens his wings once and flaps them once, and tons and tons and tons of feathers go in all directions, just like tornado up into the sky. And we go, oh God, this was a mistake, wasn't it? And the DM goes, "You are now standing in the middle of a feather storm, a pinion tornado. And it swirls around the platform so that you cannot escape without taking great amounts of damage. And flying through the air are all different numbers of eagle quills and duck feathers and just sharpness, basically, is what he was trying to get across to us, is that every time we moved one square on this platform, we would take 1 damage because of the feathers flying through the air. Not particularly the plumage part, but like the point that you would use to write with a quill. The air was filled with sharpened feathers." He goes, "Every time you move 1 square, you take 1 damage." And we were like, "Oh God, that's really awful." And it was like, and our vigilante steps up, "Crossbow bolt!" Whoosh! The wind pushes it to one side. And we're like, "Damn, okay." Throwing axe, whoosh! The wind pushes it to one side. You can't find it anymore. Damn. Okay, and the fighter's like, "I run forward. I'm not scared to take 10 damage just getting over there. I'm a level 14 fighter." So he rushes into melee, sword a-swinging back and forth. And I was like, well, we basically have to turtle our way across with Parlesia there to do like mass heals. Because by then, Parlesia has crossed into the levels of healing to where she can heal everybody within X distance of herself for like a little bit at a time. So it's like everybody step, heal, step, heal, step, heal. While the fighter is doing his absolute best, just like sending feathers in every which direction. The dragon's like just basically bitch slapping him back and forth for, boom, 18 damage, boom, 23 damage. And there's feathers and sharpness and quills flying in all directions from all different birds. This was probably part of the stone platform spell, was that it was eagle feathers and duck feathers and all the big like rapturous birds out there that have the giant pinions. Is like anything that was big enough to like take something else down and had big old feathers. So if you pulled them out and like sharpened that feather and then flung it around and it flew through the air, oh yeah. It wasn't just dragon feathers, it was everything feathers. So it takes us a while to get the entire party across the platform to the dragon. And sure enough, as soon as we get there, the dragon takes flight with what few feathers he has left to the other side of the platform. And we're like, motherfucker. Step, heal, step, heal, step, heal. And by then, our lore master has pulled out her wand of magic missile, because magic missile isn't affected by things like wind. You can't miss with magic missile. So she's like, magic missile, step, heal, magic missile, step, heal. So this dragon is basically kiting us around while the fighter is taking all kinds of extra damage. He's downing potions as he goes, basically. 3d8, 3d6, 2d6. He's going through all the potions he ever did grab. So there's no save against like a feather storm like this, so he can't take half damage from it. It's just always 1 damage every time he takes a step. So he's starting to look like a chicken, or a red scaly chicken from all the feathers sticking out of his armor and piercing into him in different places. And he's just like got handfuls. He's just like, I pull feathers by the handful to get them out of my skin, get them out of my legs and out of my armor. And I take another potion and I keep going at him. So our fighter just keeps going while our lore master is trying to pepper it with magic missiles. And, it's got some magic resist. It's an ancient dragon, so however much good that did. And we can't reach it with crossbows, and we can't reach it with bows or throwing weapons. And our wizard's like, okay, let me try. And it goes, lightning bolts. And, lightning isn't stopped by wind. So the lightning bolt connects. And we get some damage out of that. But he didn't prepare a whole bunch of lightning bolts that day. So he runs out after like 2 or 3. And the dragon is still standing. We're like, okay, what can we do? Do we have not hold person? Do we have hold monster? Do we have anything like that? And it's like, we really don't have anything that we can reach him with because he keeps dodging around, just, death by 1,000 cuts. And I was like, this is actually a really good boss battle. I was like, DM, good job. This is actually a unique and interesting fight where he's avoiding us and just letting us die by 1,000 cuts while the fighter is trying his damnedest. And then the fighter turns with his, it was like a +3 Sword of Bleeding or something like that, and makes his connection with the crit. Rolls the damage, maximum damage. Double it out. We treated crits as roll it out and then double it just to keep it simple. And the dragon's head goes flying right off the platform. It gets sucked into the tornado and it's gone. It's like, wow, we're not going to see that head anytime soon. And the feathers slow down and the tornado dissipates and the runes, stop glowing. And then it snows feathers everywhere. And the dragon's body flails around, spraying silver blood in all directions. And then it limpens and it twitches a couple of times and then it goes limp. And we're like, gosh, I hope the wind crystal wasn't like imbued in his forehead or something, because we're never going to find that head ever again. And so a calm comes to the canyon at last, and we see that we're standing in the middle of a giant crop circle at this point because the sands and the gravels have swirls all over them, and we're standing on this great big platform. And we're like, okay, is everybody okay? One more mass heal. Is everybody alive? Everybody okay? Nobody's bleeding? That kind of stuff. Parlesia's passing out heals. We're checking ourselves over for feathers. We go over to the fighter and just everybody starts pulling feathers. Ow, stop it! Ow, stop it! Ow, stop it! His dragon armor did take some damage, though. The DM told us he would have to pay, I think, like 500 gold to get it completely repaired again, because he basically got pin-cushioned following this dragon around through this storm of razor feathers. So he's like, your armor got damaged. You were running around a lot. He's like, what about everybody else? He said, well, they turtled up and they had shields and they were covering themselves. So you ran out kind of on your own, so you suffered the consequences. And he's like, well, yeah, that's fair. So, we would have to go back to town and get everything patched up and hand his stuff off to get it fixed, which was fine. Hey, we killed the Eastern Canyon dragon. 500 gold is nothing to us at this point. And we're like, okay, we've got to check for the wind crystal. It's got to be around here. In fact, I bet it's powering this giant stone platform. And like, okay, we look around for a big crystal like embedded in the stone, and we check the runes and we look around and we start like, I think the druid got a crowbar and just like started flipping over tiles and started looking, and we find it just like in a random location. It wasn't like in the center or on the side. It was like part of the equation of runes and stuff. And so we take a crowbar and we pry it out of the platform. We're like, yes, it's the elemental crystal of air. We are successful. We are victorious. Yes. And we check the dragon's body over for any valuables. Is like, again, I don't think we're going to find his hoard anywhere, just because there's so many holes and tunnels and different ways that this canyon goes. We're never going to find it. And we've got so much stuff and so much money at this point. It's like, the end of the campaign's coming up. Let's just go. And so we go back to town. We're celebratory. We're heroes. Because again, this town was being bullied by this dragon, demanding extraordinary taxation, demanding 10% of their cows and sheep every year to feast on, etc., so that they could live and farm and all that stuff. It was well within this dragon's territory, so he would come and demand tribute every month and come and demand basically 10% of their stuff once a year. So there was not a lot they could really do about it. It's like, gosh, the king was just not a very good king, was he? If 6 assholes could go and take this guy down, he could have sent in a battalion of guards, but I guess not. Shut up. It's a fantasy world. You have to be a hero to kill a dragon. Mr. Guard on the corner with a spear would have no chance. We're like, yeah, all right. And again, we stop, we rest, we eat, we recover our spells. Our fighter hands off his armor to get repaired, to get all the feathers out. And he's got a few extra dragon scales with him in case the armor should ever be shattered. So they've got materials enough to fix it and fix it properly. And we get everything oiled and sharpened, and we buy spell scrolls, and we do, more potions and things like that. You're gearing up, because that was the 4th dragon, so everything is coming up to a head at this point. And we're like, okay, so the king is in league with the Yuan-Ti, so we've got to at least go to the Shadow of the Northern Plains first, and then we can deal with them. Because if we end up having to kill the king and the Yuan-Ti, then the vacuum of power is going to be awful. But if the kingdom suddenly doubles in size, well, there'll at least be a safe place to run. So we're like, okay, Parlesia, do your thing. It's like we join hands and we sprinkle the diamond dust and we throw holy water and we draw sigils on our foreheads, and it's like, mass teleport, and we teleport. Past the farm, past the towns, past the capital, all the way to the northern edge of the kingdom. And we're not far enough north for it to be snowy or anything. It's still temperate. And we arrive at the Shadow of the Northern Plains. And the Shadow of the Northern Plains, at first glance, looks like rolling thunderheads, like clouds that are just on the ground. But we approach and we touch it, and it's like cold to the touch. We can't really get through it. It's like touching glass in the middle of winter. And sure, our fighter tries it and swings his sword at it, and again, it sounds like glass or crystal, but it's not. It's some just ethereal barrier, almost like a wall of light, but it's way too big and way too tall, way too potent for us to go through. And our druid kind of looks over and goes, I wonder if I can get a ladder tall enough. And we go, probably not. Like if some asshole just built a tower in front of the Shadow of the Northern Plains, could he go over it? And the DM's like, probably not. It's like, it has a nexus point, but it extends so far into the sky that you can't find it. You can't find the top. So, this magical Great Wall of China reaches the clouds. And it does. It looks like just big gray, big black, angry-looking, billowing clouds with an invisible crystalline barrier around it, just swirling back and forth. And I can see why. And we look behind ourselves, and it's farmland. It's like, gosh, I can see why nobody lives close to it. It's kind of depressing to look at, isn't it? Kind of scary looking. And we look for, are there goblins about? Are there Yuan-Ti about? Is there anybody here that's going to mess with us as soon as we take the barrier down? And we can only see corn pretty much and wheat as far as the eye can see. So nobody's around here right now. We're like, all right, we're going to take out our 4 magic crystals and see if we can't find the 5th magic crystal, because if you recall, the Dragon of Water at the southwestern coast at the lighthouse told us that there was a 5th magic crystal that could only be procured if you had the other 4. It basically acted like a nexus or a battery for the Shadow of the Northern Plains itself. So that's the lock, and we've got all the keys. So we've got a couple 100 miles to look for it. As far as like where it's actually sitting. It's like if we just like take our crystals out and wave them at the at the Shadow of the Northern Plains, is it going to come out? And we walk a couple of 100 yards back and forth. It's like, well, how do we do this? Like, clairvoyance isn't going to do us a lot of good because it's jet black in there. It would be like spying on someone at midnight. It's not going to do us any good. It's like, detect magic doesn't help either because the Shadow of the Northern Plains, the whole barrier is magic, so it's just going to overwhelm our wizard and give him a migraine. So I guess we just, with our crystals out, we just like walk along the wall and just wave them about until we find a good spot to procure this 5th crystal. And sure enough, we wander, about a mile, about 2 miles before our crystals start like sparkling and glowing. And it's like, it plays hot and cold with us. So we walk further and they glow brighter, and we walk further and they glow brighter. Okay, we got this. It plays hot and cold. So we finally get to a point where they glow bright as they can, and if we step further, they glow less. So it's like, okay, it's right here. It's like we hold out, earth, fire, wind, water. And and our vigilante goes, heart! And we go, shut up! Oh. Nobody asked you. And sure enough, the shadow of the northern plains, it forms like a vortex, like a swirling point, where we can step into the barrier itself a few feet, and sitting on a pedestal held by like points of platinum, I think he said, spikes made of platinum, is a black crystal, a crystal of the dark, if you will. I was expecting a light crystal, but I guess if it's a dark barrier, then, or a shadow of the northern plains, then it's going to be a dark crystal, but whatever. And we're like, okay. They're like, Parlesia, go grab it. And I was like, what? Why me? He said, well, you're imbued with holy power and stuff, so if it's like evil by nature, then it'll hurt you less. And I was like, you guys are assholes, man. And they're like, go on, you can do it. Even if it closes, you can still heal yourself and all that. And it's like, you guys are assholes. All right, tie a rope around my waist in case some shenanigans about to go down. And I put some like riding gloves on, because I always carry like 10 sacks and some torches and vermin repellent and gloves and things. Like if you have to cut somebody's head off and then turn it in for a bounty, you don't want to touch it and you don't want it in your bag. So I have like sacks and gloves and things like that on most of my D&D characters. And I put the gloves on and I have them tie a rope around my waist. And I've got one of my sacks, and I was like, I'm glad I invested in this sack. And I go, and I'm like, okay, we do the whole Indiana Jones scene where I like lean up on it, and I rub my face a little bit, and I've got the bag of sand, and I don't really have a bag of sand, but I'm just going to say I've got a bag of sand. And I grab the crystal and put the sand where it was. And the DM goes, okay, so you've got the elemental crystal of dark, the nexus point of the shadow of the northern plains, and you bring it back out to be amongst the other crystals, and of course they levitate out of your hands and swirl around the black one, and the shadow of the northern plains slowly begins to vanish from sight, like a few feet at a time. It doesn't all just come crashing down, but a few feet at a time from where you grab the crystal, you can see that the barrier is slowly dissipating, that the clouds and the crystalline barrier are cracking, falling apart, dissipating like so much mist. It's not even like a violent, it doesn't even make sound. It's very strange, and it just slowly kind of dissipates out until you can see nothing in either direction where the barrier once was. And in its place, you see a deep, deep canyon. Like you can't even see the bottom. The sun isn't at the right angle. You can't see all the way down. And we go, wow, okay. So the first thing we're going to need to do is build a bridge. So, we look across, and sure enough, lush, rolling hills covered with flowers and butterflies, and there's deer roaming in great big herds to and fro, and we see a couple of wild dogs running around yapping, and you can see an evergreen forest untouched by man for hundreds of years. Is like the promised land is on the other side of this canyon, and all we have to do is run to the people and say, hey, your kingdom just doubled in size, go build a bridge, go. or just like dump earth into it for the next 6 months so that we've got an earthy bridge to get across. And we go, gosh, that was really easy. I was surely expecting a boss or something. Hold it right there. There's the boss. And we turn, and emerging up out of the canyon is a metallic dwarf, like a really big metallic dwarf. Like he's large size. He's bigger than we are. Forged from like flesh metal, almost like a warforged, but like less robot, more my flesh is made of metal. And he said he's carrying a great big slab of steel on one of his arms and a great big club on one side covered with spikes and nails and stuff like that. And his hair is made of fire and he's covered with like obsidian armor. He's just big, imposing motherfucker that can't hardly... And we go, is that the Dwarven Defender? And he goes, what? And he goes, is that the Dwarven Defender from Wicked Master? And he's like, no. And he goes, it totally is, isn't it? This is a revenge boss, DM, God. And we all, like, we do the shame at him, like, pointing fingers. Like, he was still sore about his character from the last campaign being annihilated by his own god, and made like a super version of that character, a Dwarven Defender made of metal with hair of fire, to come and fuck with us. And we're like, no, that's bad sportsmanship, number one. Number two, why? Why would you bring up that bad memory? So we are disappointed in our DM at this point. Like, before it was just like creativity skills, we were kind of helping him along. This was kind of insulting, to be honest. But he's like, well, it's a boss battle either way, go for it. It's not a dragon, you know, it's a metallic Dwarven Defender. And we're like, all right. And we kind of lean and like whisper amongst ourselves. And it was like, he thinks this is going to be like a big epic boss fight, that this was the guy that was going to come out and like reclaim the crystals from whomsoever moved the elemental crystal of the dark, that he would kill us, put the crystal back, and the shadow of the northern plains would once again rise. So we go, all right, well, he's large size and he's made of metal, so we're guessing he doesn't have a very high reflex save and stuff like that. Like, we're kind of meta-knowledging, but he's big and heavy, and he's standing on the edge of the canyon because he just crawled out of it. And we go, yeah. And the DM goes, well, yeah, that's where he is, and okay, roll initiative. And we kind of lean and we whisper to ourselves for a while. It's like, this guy's, 10 feet tall. Again, his flesh is made of metal. His hair is made of fire. He's got the giant shield, the giant club. Like, meleeing with him is not going to be a good idea. And he's probably going to have magic resistance because that's something our DM would do. So, we roll initiative, and the Dwarven Defender Giant, or whatever you want to call him, the Metal Dwarf, rolls last in our initiative order, and we kind of look at each other, and then we smile, and we look at our DM and go, we gang rush him and shoulder check him into the canyon. And he goes, what? And he goes, as a group, since all of us go before him, the first 5 of us hold our action, and then the last person will lead the charge, and we're basically going to ram all 6 of our shoulders into this guy, and since he's standing on the very edge of the canyon, knock his ass into the canyon. And he goes, what? And he goes, since there's 1 person leading and 5 people aiding, each of us gets a +2 to whatever that person's doing. So whatever this person rolls, +10 to knock him on his ass, or rather knock him over the edge. And the DM goes, oh, damn. And of course we pick the fighter because he's the strongest. The fighter leads the charge, basically like a linebacker, and we lead up behind him in a big Power Rangers V formation. And just like shoulder check into the guy, and he rolls the strength 19 +10 plus his strength plus all these other things. And the DM's like, all right, I've got to roll his fortitude. And he rolls it. It's like a 7 plus whatever he's got. We knock his ass into the campaign. Oh! And he turns into a little dot. And then we hear him just make a crater in the bottom of this canyon. And it's like, well, depending on how deep that canyon was, he probably took about 500 damage when he hit the ground. And we dust our hands and we call it a day. This is why you have to be very careful when it comes to boss placement, because they still have to obey regular rules like gravity. And we were like, well, that's kind of what you get for trying to pull a revenge character boss. It's like, that didn't have anything to do with anything. You just wanted to mess with us with your old character, beefed up on different stats and abilities. So that was your own damn fault. And the DM's like kind of downcast at this point. It's like, well, we may as well go on to the capital and confront the king. You know, the shadow of the northern plains has fallen. I'm sure everybody's noticed by now, or at least the people that are on watch in the capital. You know, they can see it on the horizon because it was so big. I'm sure some squire or some lookout at the capital is going to run to the king and say, the shadow of the northern plains has fallen. You know, your kingdom has doubled in size. Huzzah. And stuff like that. So we should probably get back to the capital and report in. And so we kind of confer amongst ourselves for a while, and we go, well, the king is with the Yuan-Ti. He's going to ask for the crystals. We have to tell him no. Whatever happens, you know, he's probably going to turn into like a giant super form boss, because that's how this campaign has been going. He's probably going to have guards that are actually disguised Yuan-Ti. Like, there's going to be a pitched battle as soon as we get there. So, you know, our lore master holds up the dragon idol like, we've got allies. We can do this. You know, we didn't take any damage from the giant metal dwarf, so we're still kind of in the clear in terms of health and spells and stuff. Let's just go take care of business. So we go, okay, you know, Parlesia, we join hands and we drop the diamond dust, we draw the sigils, Power Rangers, join hands, bah! And we mass teleport. And we mass teleport all the way back to the throne room, because Parlesia can land with precision in a location if she's been there before. So we've been to the throne room before, we can just, boom, land there. And then it started getting bad. I know I've poked fun, you know, four magic dragons, 4 magic crystals, we're playing Final Fantasy 1. Or, you know, I'm Parlesia, I'm Parlesia, fighting the same bandits over and over, mowing through Yuan-Ti by the dozen as we go. You have no idea, guys. You have no idea how much content to this campaign that I have cut out because it doesn't matter. We fought so many, like, quote-unquote random battles and stuff like that. Like I said at the beginning of this video, that we were starting to get sick of this campaign and our DM's kind of bullshit way of doing, like, big battles. Like, if you have, like, one big battle in a campaign, that's great. But, like, over and over and over, the same guys, the same Yuan-Ti, the same bandits, just over and over and over and over and over again. We were at our wits' end. And we were ready for this campaign to be done. I know I've been embellishing this campaign and making it sound good, but the only reason it sounds good is because I've cut out all the bullshit, so you guys don't have to listen to it. So, not really anybody at the table is happy at this point. This campaign is coming to an end, but unraveling at the same time. And when we arrive, we mass teleport, we arrive at the throne room, it all starts to come apart. And we were very close to the end, so listen well to how this campaign crashed and burned. We arrive in the throne room and we drop hands and we go, King, Mr. King, we have returned. And we turn around, and again, if you remember, the throne room is about the size of a football field. It's quite large. And we turn, and in the throne room are 200 Yuan-Ti. 200 Yuan-Ti. You remember at the very beginning when we fought 40 Yuan-Ti, and it took like 3 or 4 hours to get through them all? Now there's 200. Plus the king on his throne, plus the lieutenants, plus the guards. And we look at our DM and we go, what? And he had like little squares of plywood with Yuan-Ti pictures on them, and he'd made all of these. Like he'd gone through like over the summer when he was planning this campaign, he made 200 little Yuan-Ti tiddlywinks, like printing out pictures and putting them on plywood. And he basically got like a big like sandwich baggie and opened it and dumped 200 Yuan-Ti onto the battle mat and started like lining them up like a little Warhammer army. And we look at each other and we look at our DM like just like quickly lining them like half-blood, Yuan-Ti half-bloods, Yuan-Ti soldiers, Yuan-Ti wizards, Yuan-Ti clerics. Like I said, the king's 2 guards, a couple of the guys that get big and hulk out when they put blood on their foreheads and arms. He drops 200 guys, and I'm not even exaggerating. We went back and counted them afterwards to see how many tiddlywinks there were. 200 Yuan-Ti just hanging out and milling around in the throne room. And we bust in, with mass teleport like the Power Rangers, and everything falls silent, and they turn and they look at us. And we're like, oh, wow. And it's like, it's not even that our characters are afraid. Like, we've fallen out of character at this point. We arrive in the throne room, 200 Yuan-Ti plus the king, plus his guards. And we're like, this is how this ends, isn't it? And we kind of look at each other, and we've got the elemental crystals in our bags. And Parlesia has the elemental crystal of dark in her bag, and I think we assigned like 1 elemental crystal for everybody except the fighter, because he was our frontline guy, and we didn't want it to get smashed or broken or whatever. And we're like, okay, what do we do now? And our DM looks us straight in the face and goes, roll initiative. And we look at each other, and we look back at our DM, and we go, roll initiative against 200 guys? Are you stupid? Do you remember the 40 guys at the very beginning, how long that took? Do you have any idea how long it's going to take to fight 200 guys, if we can fight 200 guys? We're like, all right, we sat there for a moment like contemplating. It's like, should we just quit? Like, the frustration had built so high. Should we just quit at this point? And the DM goes, well, let me start on mine. I've got 200 rolls to do. I was like, 200 rolls? You asshat. You've got a battle with 200 guys, and you're going to roll initiative 200 times. Like, if, just say I lost my mind and decided to do a battle with 200 monsters, I'd roll initiative for them beforehand. And even then, I would roll initiative for them in groups. Like, all the Yuan-Ti clerics get this initiative. All the Yuan-Ti half-bloods get this initiative. If I lost my mind and did a giant-ass 200-person battle, I'd have all that set beforehand and written down and ready, and then have the characters go, and then it would be on. No. He wanted to roll initiative for every single Yuan-Ti in the room. And everybody at the table just kind of falls into a stunned silence, and we kind of lean back in our chairs and we look at each other. And by the time he's like in the 30s or 40s, we're like, DM, I think we're done. I think that's it. We asked you not to do this. We asked you not to do any of these giant pitched battles, and you ignored us. We asked you to stop with the random battles, and you ignored us. You brought a revenge character as a boss, and that was just bad form, bad taste. And it was like, I think we're done. I think your campaign is over. And we started like putting our character sheets away, packing up our stuff. We took our minis off the map, and he just kept rolling initiative. Like if he did it fast enough, we would like put our stuff back and sit down again. It's like, DM, you've got to stop. We're at our wits' end. Your campaign is over. It's like, well, you could summon your dragon friend to come and break the idol and summon the water dragon to take out a whole bunch of them. It's like, well, yeah, but you've already rolled initiative for all of them, so that would have been wasted time anyway. I was like, just stop. And I kind of reached over and just like gently closed his laptop and was like, you've done everything exactly as we asked you not to. So just, you didn't listen to your players. I'm sorry. Your campaign's over. And then yeah, there's not a lot of eye contact in the room. There's no yelling. We're not like angry, super angry. We're just frustrated. We're tired of him not listening. And part of your job as a DM is to listen to your players and not to like bow before them or anything, but like if they tell you they really hate something, you've got to change it. You've got to not, don't do that again. And then 8 sessions later, he does that again, but 5 times bigger. And again, he mixed up big and epic. So I was like, okay, let's epilogue this, shall we? When our heroes arrived in the center of the throne room, surrounded by 200 Yuan-Ti, it did not take long for the massive group to cut them down. Even the mighty fighter, with his +3 sword and his dragon armor, eventually succumbed to pure numbers as the Yuan-Ti pulled them down with sword and spear and magic. And the day was lost. We had delivered the 5 elemental crystals into the king's hands, and the Yuan-Ti were victorious. It was upon that day when the Yuan-Ti had risen high enough in power and had sent out enough people that all of the holy sites across the kingdom were corrupted, and the Ouroboros began to fitfully, slowly awake from its slumber, and the world was brought to its knees, and doomsday was upon us. The end. So, Shadow of the Northern Plains did not go well. It did not end well. It didn't end well under our own guidance, just because 200 people versus 6. I mean, yeah, we could have called the dragon in. We could have done a number of things. We had mass heal, but it was 200 people. Would you want to sit in a battle that big for that long? While, you take your turn and then you have to wait for, 205 other people to individually move around, plus the king, plus his guards? No, that's not... D&D is built on the individual playing field. It's not like Warhammer. It's not like any other like army-based game. It's not meant for large numbers. It's really not. It's meant for individual characters to be fighting. And though there were 6 heroes, it gets to a point where it becomes too large to be fun. Like, yeah, I move and I swing my sword. Okay, I'm going to go make a sandwich and do my taxes. Tell me when it's my turn again. And the game just kind of falls apart, So we turned the DM down. We turned him away. We said, no, campaign's over. We asked you not to do this and you didn't listen. So the world came to an end as our heroes were cut down and the magic crystals stolen with them and put to the Yuan-Ti's uses as they were corrupting the holy sites to awaken their dark god, their snake god, the Ouroboros, that lays buried at the center of the earth. And the world was doomed. Or was it? There was a campaign that happened after this one, dear listener, in which we fought for the fate of the world after Shadow of the Northern Plains. So, if you want to hear the next chapter in this story after we completely failed to save the world, if you'd like to hear what happens next, you'll have to join me next time on D&D Stories. Keep gaming.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!